afternoon, televiewers of High TV. Welcome to yet another edition of your weekly program, Time with Youth. Our guest is Mr. Ramses Fopi. Mr., you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Chantal.
What do you have for the youth today as per the topic?
As an entrepreneur, self-employment is something important, but when you are in conflict, when they have difficulties, they have a lot of challenges. So we talk today about how does conflict affect youth in terms of self-employment and your job creation.
Okay, you've heard it all from our guests of today. They have a whole lot of things to talk to you about as per the topic of today. Stay with us as we come back from the break to discuss with you the topic in detail.
Helping you, causing fish to prosperity. Youth empowerment to prosperity. Youth empowerment and empowering the youths. Youth empowerment helping youth, causing fish.
Welcome back, televiewers, and if you're just tuning into your televisions, it's the program on air, it's Time with the Youth, and we are on today's topic. We are discussing violence on youth and its implications. And to you, Mr. Fopi, what can you say is your own perspective on violence?
Okay, Chantal, violence today is very common, and everywhere we see people being affected by violence. But I will speak about external violence.
Okay.
Because we can talk about external or internal. External violence is when people are affected about a given situation, like the situation we are living in our regions. Okay, people are being affected by such situation, but it's not their will. It happened that they are affected by that violence. Okay, then now interviolence. It can be interviolence among youth. Okay, we may have a problem, and instead of talking normally, I come and bring violence in. So we talk down in internal violence. So that's basically how I can differentiate violence, internal and external violence.
Okay, that was coming from Mr. Ramses Fopi, an entrepreneur. And what can you say is the cause of conflict that can lead to violence?
Okay, the first thing I will say is misunderstanding. You know, misunderstanding is the fact that people usually have and create conflict. I will talk in this perspective because usually when we are working with colleagues, sometimes we don't understand each other, and then if we don't sit down and communicate well, it can create violence. So if communication is not well spread amongst people, it will create violence. Okay, so communication is a key, and I'm talking like this because we usually manage projects. And in a given project, when there is no communication among team members, it creates conflict and we deal with violence. So even in the society, if we talk about the whole society, if people are governing, if government does not really communicate well with citizens, it might create conflict between the two parties. Meanwhile, if they communicate well, the violence might be evacuated. Okay, so in any situation, it depends. If people communicate well, we may evacuate violence, but if we don't communicate well, we create violence. So this communication is a key in terms of violence.
Okay, and according to Mr. Fopi, if I got you right, effective communication is the key to resolving violence and conflict in our societies. If you are just tuning in, this is Talk Time with the Youth, and you can follow us with the number on your screen. You send us your contributions via the number on your screen. What is your own stake on the topic of today, violence on youth and its implications? What can violence do to you as a youth, and what can it do to a nation as a whole? And
based on the individual's notification and awareness of what the activity or the event that happened is all about. You understand? So the consequences are so diverse, and most of the people who are engaged in these consequences are the youth. That's the effect. The youth.
Okay, so the youths, you have to be watchful of everything you do out there. No matter what you do, think of others. Like you've heard from the guests of today, all of them have made mention of the fact that violence is not only when you carry out the most negative or the most harmful act on earth that can be considered violence. Violence can also be just like you merely telling somebody that you hate that person. That is violence, because you are inflicting pain on that person. And moving on to you.
Miss Sandra, please permit me to say this.
Okay.
Now, I noticed something in Boya here.
Okay.
Mostly, you see most of these boys who drink and smoke. Okay, mostly in the night, they make lots of noise, and especially in the students' environment, they put music so high that around 12 o'clock you cannot concentrate. Now, I'm telling you what is happening in the Boya municipality here. Now, it's not actually kind of a physical act that you have done, okay, but it engages me to act violently to you. So violence can be provoked. There's an action that I can see, and it can stay or violent in me. For instance, there's a particular church that where we're living before in Moliko. There's a particular church that keeps having night vigils. The night vigils always end by 5. No, I'm serious. This activity that we do, but we don't know that they prepare a counter reaction, and now the reaction might be violent. Okay, because when you cannot take it at a particular extent, you need now to be violent, and it can cause conflict. Okay, now the one night vigils, and they shout and hit the bands till around 5 o'clock in the morning, continuously. And the night vigils are the Wednesdays, Thursday. Nobody says you should not serve God, but then you are looking at the effect of your action on another person. Okay, now we are looking at that effect, and now that effect now can cause the person who we are actually having that that program on to be violent, because it can be provoked. Nobody decides to be violent. There's no violent person. Violence is a reaction. It's not the result. It's just a reaction. I think I need to make that point so that it's well understood. So that when you carry out an activity, you should question the thing. What is the effect of what I am doing? Because the violence comes as a result of an activity. You can carry an activity you think you have actually justified, but now you don't know the counter reaction of that activity on another person. We have experienced in the taxi. You want to pay you have 500 francs, you want to pay, you say 150 and 500. Now 150 and 500 francs, the person begins to insult you. He says, I'll take 200. That's violence. And I go now to the house, I cannot have peace because 200 francs have been cost for my 500 francs.
Okay, before I come to you, Mr. Ramses, I just want to ask you this follow-up question, Mr. Alain. You, as concerns the church, what if you are given like the opportunity to talk to the pastor or the people running that church? What will you tell them to do? Like, will you advise them to evacuate that area, or what will be your resolution?
No, I'll advise them to do it moderately, or advise them to respect the people around, because where you are living, they are Muslims and they are human beings like you. Where you are living, they are Hindus, they are Baha'is, and they are human beings like you. And now if they are making the same noise, it affects you as well. Now, in a particular location like the Boyan municipality, the Moliko, that is a location wherein it's characterized by the student population. You do that, they have a negative impression on the students.
Okay, thank you very much for that wonderful response. And coming out to you, Mr. Ramses Fobi, am I correct? So now you are an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you encounter many youth and different people from different spheres and walks of life every day. So, do you have an experience of violence, or have you ever carried out this violent action on any of your clients?
Okay, it's good you asked the question. I mentioned, my co-panelist said violence is a consequence, okay, because violence is created. So people are in my job site, usually when you don't communicate with your client well, you create violence. Okay, somebody will go and purchase a product, and he will go and start using it. You never tell him exactly how the product operates. Okay, when he has a problem now, he come back to you, because when he come back to you and you cannot assist him, he will be hungry, right? And then at that time, that is violence. You have created violence, and the person now can act. The reaction might not be good at all. Okay, so I will mention in terms of youth. Okay, in self-employment. Youth today, sometimes they don't get the right communication with what the government offer or with what the organization offers. Okay, and then they create now violence in them. That's why you see people every day. They are strike. There are a lot of things people that are doing outside there. They drink and they take drugs, because they think that the people they are abandoned to themselves. Okay, because it's just a lack of communication. Because there are several tools that are outside that you can use to become somebody tomorrow, to create your future. but most of the time those tools are not well communicated. I'm emphasizing on communication because, as I said, if you don't communicate well, you are creating violence. Okay, so even at home, if you don't communicate well with your children, you will create violence. Okay, so this, I'm emphasizing on this because youths are having a lot of problem in terms of communication. Okay, when I do something, I don't even think that if it will affect somebody or not. Okay, and I don't communicate with the person, that is violence. I'm creating violence, and then the person's reaction now might hurt me. So those are the things that we should understand in terms of violence, that communication is the key tools. I will emphasize on this, key tools.
Okay. Communication is the key tool to restraining from violence. And Mr. Fopi, what can you add to what Ms. Karen has said?
Okay, what she mentioned is good. I will emphasize on the impact of violence on youth.
Okay.
Okay, we know what's happening in our regions today. The two regions, Northwest and Southwest. These youth are being affected, but this external violence, because I'm talking about those who are not actors of the crisis. Okay, they are there. They want to have a job. They want to create jobs, opportunities, but the situation, the violence that's being done in the region affect them. Okay, so you see, for example, companies that shut down. That mean that people will lost their job. Okay, and that is a problem, because when the family person lost a job, it now create a great pain in that family. So, and this can lead to another violence. If I cannot pay my children's school fee, then they will stay at home, and then what will they become? They can now become actors of violence tomorrow. So it's really, external violence is really bad, because you are not the one causing the violence, but the violence, then you are being affected. Because internal violence sometimes is better because you are the actor and you can easily solve it. For example, if I have a problem with you, Chantal, I may hurt you, but at a given moment I come back and we sit down and talk peacefully, and then we solve the issue. But if we are just like we are children at home and parents are having difficulties or problems, we will now be affected, but we cannot easily solve that problem. Okay, we just pray that they solve the problem so that we can now come back, the peace can now come back. Like in this situation today, people, there is no job, people are lacking job opportunity in our regions.
Please, before you continue, actually we can actually stop violence. That is why you see in the case of what happened in Yaoundé, you see the Minister of Secondary Education, Ms. Naloua, she had to go there on the crime scene to survey, and she said something. So yes, that was a means in stopping the violence, because she actually warned that if such things will be done, children are going to face consequences, and that is why the boy that stabbed the teacher was being sent to prison. So that's already an aspect of solving violence. Thank you.
Thank you for what you said. But what I'm saying is this: those who have been affected, when it comes to external violence, those who have been affected cannot easily solve the problem. Are you understanding? So you are a citizen of a nation, and the nation is having a problem. You cannot easily solve that problem as an individual, but you are being affected. Okay, at that time now it's difficult to solve, but that does not withstanding, as a youth you must be dynamic, and this is what we preach on air every day, that people should be dynamic. Because when there is a situation where people complain due to violence, and me as an entrepreneur I always say that opportunity lies there.
Okay, let me add to what he has said. Okay, let's take a case where, for example, somebody is from school and that person has had a rough day. Let's say he didn't submit an assignment due to ignorance or misled of information, and that person comes back home, and while coming back home sees a little child, and that little child is like, uncle, what did you get for me from school? And the person reacts wrongly, like, get that from me, I don't want to even talk. That's already violence. That child cannot solve it. Have you understood? The child cannot solve it because the child does not even know where the violence is even coming from, and he does not even know what happened that made the uncle to react to him or her that way. So it's from us, the individuals, and the way in which we communicate to one another. If you know somebody has done something to you, you should try as much as possible to leave that hatred or that anger in you where you got it, because you might be walking on the way and somebody might stop you. Maybe you respond to that person. That's you are multiplying that violence, because you can still react to another elderly person and the person reacts wrongly back to you. So that's another form of you.
If I got you well, Miss Blessing, you're trying to say that aggressions should not be transferred because it leads to wider violence.
Yes.
Okay, Miss Sandra, you have something to say?
Yes. What she was saying about a child not knowing how to solve violence, I will drive us back to the definition of violence. Looking on violence, we see that violence is an act but whereby someone, I'm talking as a legal personnel, so you see that violence is an act that is inferred on somebody and that person causes pain. So it is someone that causes pain on another person. So that person, and violence can be still through false imprisonment, conspiracy, and many more. So when an act is being committed to somebody, you committing that act, you're the person that has actually committed the violence, not the other person that has been said to the person. So you, as a person that has said the violence verbally, you can that has committed violence verbally, you can actually solve the violence by you apologizing, by you going to tell that person that what I did is wrong. Thank you.
And coming back to you, just a follow-up question from what you said. There are instances or there are times in our lives when we offend people, that is unknowingly, and at that very point in time, you apologizing to that person, that is all of you, your nerves are high and nobody wants to say I'm sorry. So will you apologize immediately or you give an interval?
Well, I'll say apology. You can't know if somebody can accept an apology unless you try. So when you try and you see that that person has not yet forgiven you, that is why there is always a second chance. Even in the Bible, God gave second chance to everybody. So you have to go and apologize again another time. So when you do that and you see that the person is not d'accord, you keep on trying till the person finally accepts your apology. Because until I said earlier about low self-esteem that is being caused by violence and fear, until that person accepts that I've forgiven you, then you can have another bold, sound mind to stand anywhere and talk.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Sandra, for that wonderful response. Televiewers of ITV, if you are just joining us, this is Time with the Youth, and the program we are discussing today is violence and its implications on the youth. You can follow us via the number on your screen. Send us an SMS on your own take and perspective of what violence is all about. And moving on to recommendations, I will start with you, Mr. Ramses. What are the recommendations for violence?
Okay, you are asking the recommendation to avoid violence.
Yeah.
Okay,
what to do to avoid violence.
I will, like I said earlier, I will emphasize on communication. Again, because if you want to avoid violence, you must communicate well. Okay, so I'm emphasizing on this because I'm an IT project manager, so I manage project in teams. Okay, when you are a team, you don't communicate well, the project leads to failure. Okay, so that is even in our society. If I have my neighbor and you have a problem, if you don't sit down and communicate, if there's no dialogue, violence will be just normal. Okay, so the first recommendation is the dialogue or communication. Now we can talk about other things too. You should be honest in life. Okay, because if you are not honest, you will create violence. Because if I go somewhere and talk about people and talk to people about you because I want to hurt you, I will create violence. Okay, but if I'm honest with myself, I know that what I'm saying everywhere is right, I may avoid violence. Okay, so if people are honest, and one panelist mentioned love also avoid violence. Love even carry everything, because if you love somebody, you will communicate with the person. If you love somebody, you will not hurt the person. If you love somebody, you cannot create violence. So love is important.
Okay, I hope you heard that very well. Love is important, so learn to love in order to avoid violence. And over to you, Miss Karine. What can you say as a recommendation for violence?
Well, as a student, I will start by talking about communication,
because I believe if you can communicate very well with your student, with your fellow mate, it will help to reduce the rate of violence. And I'll talk of love too, as he said, love conquereth all. So I believe if there is love and trust for one another, it will help to reduce violence in the society.
Okay, Ms. Blessing, what do you have to say as per the recommendations? What can you as a youth do in order to avoid violence?
That is one of the main cause, I think, for violence is jealousy, because youth nowadays, they tend to get jealous of people a lot, especially when they see you on top of them. They try to like bring your esteem down. They try to bring you down. So if you stop getting jealous over things that are not yours, because precisely we get jealous of material things. When we see people dressing well, we don't dress well, we get jealous of them. We even see them and even talk gossip about them. So if you stop getting jealous over little material things, you will tend to see that there will be no violence at all, because it's jealousy that's the main issue that causes violence.
Okay, stop the jealousy act in you. Stop being jealous of your colleagues. Stop being jealous of your classmates, your friend, your neighbor, whosoever you meet on your way, in order to avoid violence. And Miss Sandra, what do you have to say?
I would say that violence is something that all of us we do. We do it knowingly and unknowingly. We do it unknowingly and knowingly. But when you do it unknowingly and you realize that you have done it, the thing is you have to compose yourself, then go meet the other person that you have offended and apologize. The only thing is apology, the 4-letter word sorry. If you say I'm sorry, that situation will actually come to pass. Yeah.
Okay, so you have something
Yes,
to say?
if you permit me, another recommendation I will add is patience. Okay, I spoke about external violence. When you are in the environment that you are not the actor of the violence, but you are being affected, patience is something very important. Because if you are not patient enough, you will carry out actions that will create another violence. Okay, so it's important to be patient. Like if you are at home, you are a child, and your parents are having problems, you should be patient. Because if you are not patient enough, you are affected by that situation, but you cannot actually solve it. Okay, you should be patient. It's the same thing with youth. We should be patient and wait for a solution. When it comes to youth unemployment, we see a lot of things that are going wrong maybe in our council. We should be patient and hopeful and hope that the situation will be solved. So being patient is something very important in this type of situation.
And just a follow-up question, Mr. Fopi Ramses. And what if that youth has persevered to a certain level that the problem has still not been resolved? What will you advise that person to do? Will you advise him or her to carry on the violent act or keep being patient?
No, you should be patient. Okay, the only thing, if you want to even carry out action, you should carry action peacefully. Okay, it's just like it makes no sense to go out with violence, even if you are not the one, because at the beginning you are affected by a given situation. It's not good to carry out violence, because at that time it's just like if you go to school and maybe somebody took your pen, will you take another person's pen because they took your pen?
No.
That's not okay. So you should be patient. If you're patient at a given moment, that's why among youth there are actors who can help solve situation. You can be a child at home and parents are having situation, and maybe you are smart enough to help them solve the situation, but you should not carry out violence. It's not good.
Okay, let me just add to what he's saying, Mr. Ramsey is saying. In a situation where you're out there and you've actually carried out the patient and it's not working, you could just get yourself a rubber band and tie. Each time you feel jealous or you see that somebody has hurt you and you want to react, just touch it, and when it stings you feel the pain, then it will help you now to be more patient and all. Thank you.
Well, we are drawing close to the end of this program, but we won't leave you without giving out our advice out there to the youth. So, Mr. Fopi, what do you have as an advice for the youth out there?
Okay, first advice for youth I will still mention patience. Okay, you will pardon me, but patience is something that we youth we need. Okay, because I'm talking as an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurship, patience is the most important skill. If you are not patient, you cannot achieve things outside. So we are being affected in this. In Buea, there are many situations that we are affected by. So and we cannot easily solve the problem because we are not the actors of the problem. Okay, so we should be patient. So youth, they should be patient. And secondly, youth should take actions. Okay, it's not because you are in a situation where there is violence that you cannot go to market when there is market day and sell something. Okay, you stay at home, even the day that is not locked down, you still stay at home because you are saying that the country is not going fine. No, you must take action and do something. Okay, and then communication again, because when there is conflict between two persons like this internal, okay, you should communicate well with the person. You go to the person, be honest, be humble. When you are humble, people listen to you. But if you want to be like I'm always the first, you should not talk to me or whatever. People will be hungry. Okay, but if you go and you are honest and you talk with the person, you will solve the problem. This is basically what I can say.
Okay, thank you very much. And over to you, Miss Sandra. What is your own advice to the youth out there?
My advice to the youth out there, I'm a youth as well, so eventually applies to me as well, is that we should show love to one another. When you show love, you believe that when you show love, eventually you won't have the time to think about inferring pain on another person. And if you make everybody your friend, you will not have that. You will see that this person is your friend, and you always try as much as possible not to hurt that person. So if we show love and we see everybody as our friends, we're eventually going to fight against violence, and we're going to put peace in the front line. Thank you.
Chantal, if you permit, I just want to say something.
Okay,
there's what we call emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Emotional intelligence, they say that empathy and kindness are the true sign of emotional intelligence. When somebody has emotional intelligence, he cannot, even if you take action, harmful action to the person, he will never react directly. It will take time, as she said, to think about it well before taking action. So it's not because somebody insult you that you insult the person back directly.
Yeah.
Okay, when you are kindness, you know how to manage with people, how to cope with people. It's very important. So we should look out emotional intelligence and make sure that we have those skills in our mind.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Fopi, and thank you all for staying with us till the end of this program. Televiewers of High TV, we've come to the end of this program, Time with the Youth, and all along we have been discussing on the topic violence and its effects on the youth's personal development. And we've had on stage today very interesting and vibrant youths from every space of life who have educated you all out there on the necessary precautions of violence. And one of them is for you to be patient. So, and even myself, I would advise that patience and love are the watchful words for you to take into consideration before carrying out a violent act. From now, join us for a rebroadcast on Monday at 4 p.m. same station, same time. Thank you.
Youth empowerment and prosperity. Youth empowerment and empowering the youths.